Hello and welcome again to the online course on Building Cost Estimation Simplified. In this video lesson, we'll be learning about the types of estimates and organization of estimates. The estimate and its components. We had learned in our previous video lessons what an estimate is. Estimation is the approximate assessment or calculation to arrive at the value of a work or activity proposed. The estimate helps us to assess the time required for completion of a work activity and also is useful to assess required resources like manpower and money. Now we look at the types of estimates that we will come across. So the types of estimate that we're going to discuss, the classification is based on the purposes for which they are prepared and the amount of information known when these estimates are prepared. So based on that, we have two types of estimates, which are the preliminary estimate and the detailed estimates. Now, preliminary estimate is also called as approximate estimate at times. It's also called as feasibility, screening, authorization, conceptual, order of magnitude, equipment factor, or budget estimates. Now, where do we use the preliminary estimate? Take the case of the budget allocation by the government. Whenever there is a budget allocation, the government has to ensure that the funds allocated does not exceed what is to be allowed for that particular fiscal year. So in those feasibility studies, where we need these feasibility studies which are to be done, and the result of these studies are usually in a very preliminary one in nature. So preliminary estimates or approximate estimates come at that stage when there is a budget allocation. Sometimes construction companies do a feasibility studies at the development phase of a project in order to see what is the cost of construction versus the revenue generated from the project. So again, we use approximate estimate or the preliminary estimate. Now, sometimes architects may have to design alternatives for the most economical design to fit into the budget of the client. And again, this approximate estimate is usually something we resort to. Approximate estimates or preliminary estimates are sufficiently accurate for the evaluation of design alternatives or the presentation of preliminary construction estimates to the owner, but they are not sufficiently accurate for bid purposes. So usually when the information available is limited, we go for a preliminary estimate. Now we look at what a detailed estimate is. When for bid processes, etc., we use a detailed estimate. It's sometimes called the final or the bid or tender estimate or definitive estimate. Now in this, every activity is taken in detail, and that is and the accuracy is much more. In fact, we analyze every component that will contribute to the cost of the construction, and then we use the detailed estimate. Now let's look at the method of estimation, and we will be looking at the preliminary estimate for this purpose. So in preliminary estimate, there are three major ways of finding the estimate. One is a unit method of estimating. One is a cube method of estimating, and the other is a plinth area method of estimating. We look at the unit method of estimating. Here, a unit is used to measure the size of the building. In this method of estimating, a unit is used to measure the entire size of the building. And so what would these units be? It could be something like the size of a parking garage, and or when we have a size of a parking garage may be measured by the number of parking stalls in the garage. So the unit becomes each parking stall. Usually the standard units represent the cost per seat, per bed space, per car space, etc. Such estimates are really approximate, and they vary according to the type of construction and specifications adopted, but they offer a reasonable cost to the builder or client. The variation expected would be in the range of plus or minus 20%, and so it is not very useful except for long-term budget planning. So that is what we mean by the unit method of estimating. We have a unit which is used to find the entire cost by extrapolating it. Now we look at the next method of estimating under the approximate estimate method. So this is a cube method of estimating. Here the cubic cost is equal to cost of a building divided by the volume of the building. So what we do is the cost per cubic meter of various types of projects done in the past is recorded in a cube. Now how we do it is that whenever a tender is awarded for a project, the tender cost is taken and it is divided by the volume of that project, and then we arrive at a particular value called the cubic cost, and then we record it in a book, and the next time we have some project which is similar in scale and specifications, etc., we use that value that we have, and we multiply it with the area of this current project to get the estimate. The drawbacks of this method is that it does not take into consideration the number of floors, specifications, quantity of labor, etc. So it may work for tall buildings without intermittent floors like a warehouse or a stadium. We look at the next method of estimation under approximate method. It's called the plinth area method. This is very commonly used in the construction industry. Even now, when we approach a construction contractor with a building project, they would actually give us a value of plinth area cost, and that is how they arrive at the cost of construction of a building. So in this, unlike in the previous method, the cube method, what we have here is that the area of the cost of the building is divided by the plinth area of the building, and then we get a value. That is the going value in that particular locality. And so the next time there is a building to be built, the area of the new building is multiplied by the square feet rate, and then we find the total cost of the building project. Now the advantage of plinth area method is that it can be done at a very early stage of building construction. So we might not have the detailed drawings in place. Maybe we have just a single line drawing plan and also maybe elevations and sections. But this is actually enough to make a square foot estimate. So this is at a very rudimentary stage where the client wants to check whether the owner, whether he or she has the budget to finish the project. So that's the advantage of having a plinth area method. Now, when we come to the detailed estimate, the factors that go into finding the estimate are many. We have factors like material, labor, equipment, overhead charges, and profit, which goes into estimating a detailed estimate. So this is very accurate. So when we mean by estimate, we actually referring to the detailed estimate. When during the bidding process, the contractor submits a detailed estimate, which is actually the bid price. And when the contract is awarded to the contractor, this becomes the money that the contractor will earn on the project. Now let's look at how we prepare the detailed estimate. The first step is that we review the scope of the project. So for this, we look through the contract documents, the contract requirements, the drawings, and the technical specifications. And if need be, the estimator also has to go to the project site and check the site and look for the utilities that are available, the size available for storage of construction materials, etc. Many aspects can be checked if the estimator goes onto the site before preparing the estimate, about how the traffic is controlled, how are the security and existing facilities available on the site. So it is a good idea for an estimator to go to the construction site prior to the estimation process. Now, after we review the scope of the project, we determine the quantities, the BOQ or the bill of quantities. So this is mainly done from the drawings that we have and the specifications. The quantity has to be tabulated, and the unit of measure of all work required during construction is to be documented. After the completion of BOQ, the prices are added to it. In the sense, prices are also produced side by side to the material quantity that is there, which we have actually discussed in our previous video. And then the quantity of the material is multiplied by the unit cost of the material, and then we get the material cost. Now, so that was about the bill of quantity, where we get the bill of BOQ, and the pricing of the material, total cost of equipment, labor cost, which all fall under the direct cost category, is done in the next step. There are various methods of finding the cost of equipment and labor cost, and so that's the third step that we do. The second is about finding the material quantity, and then we have the pricing in the third step. Now, once the direct cost is calculated, which has been done in the previous step, we find out the indirect cost. Now, the indirect costs comprise of taxes, bonds, insurance, and overhead charges. What we do is that we add the direct and indirect cost to find the total cost of the project. So first we have the direct cost part. We find out the direct cost, and in the second part we find out the indirect cost. It would be a good idea for the learners to find out what are the various taxes, bonds, and insurances in the construction field in India. So kindly leave your comments in the discussion forum, and that would be an exercise that you may like to do. Now, after this, what we do is we find out the contingency. A risk analysis of uncertainties is conducted to determine an appropriate contingency to be added to the base estimate. The base estimate is what we found earlier, the direct and indirect costs, and then we find the contingency. So there is always some unforeseen work that develops during the process of construction, and caution must be used in assigning contingency to an estimate. So the problem is that if we have a contingency that is too low, we might reduce the profits in the project, while a contingency that is too high may prevent the bid from being competitive enough. So after this, we come to the profit. After calculating the direct and indirect costs, and after we analyze the risk, and then we assign the contingency, a profit is added to the estimate to establish the bid price. So this is the profit is added to the estimate, the calculated estimate of costs, and when the profit is added, this becomes the quoted price from the contractor. So what is how do we assign profit, or how do we arrive at the profit of any project? So sometimes the profits may be as low as 5% for large projects, or even as high as 30% for small projects that are high risk, or projects which are models of existing projects. So we had mentioned the material cost and the equipment cost and labor cost, which fall under the direct cost category in the previous slide. So here we have a few formulae for finding out the material cost, the total cost of equipment, total cost of labor, etc. The material cost is equal to quantity into unit price. We have discussed it. So if it is, if you want to find the total quantity of concrete, or the total quantity of cement in a project, total cost of cement in the project, and we have to find the total cost of cement in the project. What we do is the quantity of cement that is used, and we multiply it by the unit cost of a cement bag. The total cost of equipment, that's the second aspect that we are looking into, is equal to the total quantity of work required of that equipment divided by the equipment production rate into the unit cost of equipment. Okay. And now we move on to the total cost of labor. This is very similar to the previous one. Again, total quantity of work required of the labor divided by the labor production rate into the unit cost of labor. So finding the labor production rate becomes an important aspect to find out the total cost of labor of a project. Now we'll just look at the detailed estimate again. We have two aspects which forms the basic cost of a detailed estimate. This is before we add other profit, etc. Here we have direct costs and indirect costs. Under the direct costs comes the hard costs of the project, whatever is directly contributing to the project. For example, material, labor, equipment, that falls under the direct costs. And in the indirect costs, we have taxes, bonds, insurance, and overhead charges. Now, here is a sample of estimate where we have all that we discussed earlier. So, in the first few rows, we see the materials, equipments, labor, and this forms the direct cost. So, let's call it, say, A. Now we come to the indirect costs. We have material taxes, labor taxes, insurance, overhead charges. So this becomes the entire, the column together becomes the indirect costs. So we have A as direct costs and we have B as indirect costs. So what will be the total direct and indirect costs? It would be A plus B. So we have the direct and indirect costs together. Let's call it C. Now there are some add-ons. The contingency and the profit are add-ons. The contingency is a percentage of the direct and indirect costs, the sum of direct and indirect costs, and profit is a percentage of direct and indirect costs. Now the adding of contingency and profit becomes D. Okay, and then we come to the performance bond. It is again a percentage of the A plus B, which is the direct and indirect cost, plus the add-on, the contingency and profit, and then we find the percentage of it. So E is equal to percentage of C plus D, or A plus B plus D, which is the direct cost plus indirect cost plus the add-ons, and a percentage of that becomes performance bond. Now the total cost becomes a sum of everything together, direct and indirect costs, the add-ons and the performance bond together becomes the total cost of the estimate. Now we look at how we organize estimates, and usually what we follow is we follow the construction activities, the building construction activities on the site for organizing our estimates. So we have earthwork and excavation, foundation and concrete, RCC footings or masonry and foundation, dam-proof course, RCC columns, plinth fillings, sand fillings under floors, cement concrete under floors, masonry in superstructure, RCC in lintels, chajjas, bands, slabs, beams, staircases, railings. This is different from the RCC work that we have referred to in the previous parts. The flooring, including skirting, dado works, glazed tile work, plastering, pointing of masonry, the doors and windows. Then there comes the roofing, then the roofing, bitumen painting slab, painting of slab, terracing, painting woodwork, steelwork, distempering, whitewashing, color washing, cement paint, sanitary and water supply installations, and plinth protection. So if we are on the side, we see how a building comes up. First we have the excavation, then we have the foundation work, then we come to the superstructure. So similarly, we follow the same sequence when we are organizing our estimate the activities in our estimation book. So some of the major subheads of detailed estimates are earthwork, concrete work, RCC work, masonry, it could be brickwork or stonework or marble work, woodwork, steel work, finishing, roofing, water supply installations, sanitary installations, and miscellaneous items. So these are the major subheads of detailed estimates. Now we look at two other important concepts. One is the addendum. Its plural is addenda, and their change orders. So we'll first look at what an addenda is. We'll refer to it in singular term, which is addendum. It's a change in contract documents during the bidding process. So when the bidding process is going on, there are several contractors and they are all bidding for the same project. Sometimes during that process, the designer or the owner may wish to make some changes in the plans or specifications which have been issued to the contractor. And this is before they submit the bid. These changes are called addenda. Or it could be that the contractor, while reviewing these drawings and specifications, finds certain discrepancies and inform the architect. Sometimes a contractor may detect discrepancies in the plans and specifications while preparing an estimate. When an error is detected, the contractor should notify the designer to note any discrepancies. So when this happens, the designer issues an addendum or an addenda, if there are more, to make changes or make corrections in the plans and specifications. So the way an addendum is issued would be that there would be reissue of drawings or pages in which those changes have been done to the specification. And each addendum is given a number. After the addendum is issued, it becomes part of the contract documents. So the estimator will have to take into consideration the cost of all the addenda and include this in the estimate before the final bid. So now we come to the next concept of change orders. What is the difference between addenda and the change order? Is that the change in contract document after the contract is signed is called the change order. So it is not practically possible, or it could be that at times when after the contract is awarded, there could be some changes that comes into the project, which may require change in the construction process. It could be the addition or modification requested by the owner, or it could be some substitution of some material which is not available, or it could be due to adverse weather conditions. A change order may delete the work of project or add on project, which may cause increase or decrease in the cost, or even the increase or decrease in time that is required for the construction. Or even at times, a change order may not make any particular change or adjustment in time or cost. So that's the difference between addenda and change orders. Addenda is the change done during the bidding process, and change order is what is made after the bidding process is over and the contract has been awarded. Now we know what an overhead charge is, overhead charges are, and then we classify them under we classify them as job overheads, which is specifically to a project, and the general overheads, which are incurred at the company general office. Let's look at what job overheads are about. So first let us look at what overhead charges are about. They are the costs outside the main expenses of a project. We know what the main expenses are. They are material, equipment, and labor. And these are the overhead charges are outside the main expenses. Job overhead includes costs that can be charged specifically to a project. So this would include the salaries of the supervisors and other staff personnel, the cost of utilities, supplies, engineering, tests, drawings, rentals, permits, insurances, etc. And they can be charged directly to a project. Now, a general overhead is is a share of costs incurred at the general office of the company. So maybe the site office is in, say, a place like Noida, and the site office of the project. And then we have the main office of the company in Gurgaon. So there is a charge required to run the main office, which will be helping the site office, the project office. So these costs include the salaries, office rents, the permits, insurances, etc. of that is incurred at the general office of the company, and it is most of the times it is chargeable over several projects in a financial year. Now we look at some other costs that are incurred in a project. The material taxes, the taxes on the material that we purchase. GST is an example of that. Then we have labor taxes, we have labor cess, etc. Then we look at some other important terminologies that are part of the project. This is a performance bank guarantee. The guarantees are issued for performance of a contract. So this is a guarantee that is given by the contractor to client after awarding the contract, and it remains with the client till the defects liability period is over. This ensures that the contractor performs according to the agreement. So there's something called a mobilization advance. This is an important terminology. It is an advance paid to the contractor in order to mobilize his resources for starting the work. Then now let's look at bid bond. A bid bond is issued as part of a bidding process. by the contractor to the project owner to provide guarantee that the winning bidder will undertake the contract under the terms at which they bid. So this is to ensure that what they bid for is carried out. So the bid bond is another terminology. We have the payment bond. It forms a three-way contract between the owner, contractor, and the surety, the bank or any other entity from where the bonds are being taken from, to make sure that all subcontractors, laborers, and material suppliers will be paid. Now, contractors' all risk policy is a very important policy that is taken by the contractor. This is to ensure against protection against loss or damage in contract work, equipment, machinery, or third-party injuries. Contractors' all risk policy is a very important and policy that has to be taken by contractors while executing a construction project. We have a workmen's compensation policy. It is a labor insurance policy that covers employees' bodily injury or even death while on a job. This is as per the Employees Compensation Act of 1923. Now, sometimes in contractors' all risk policy, the client takes the policy and the premium is deducted from the contractors on a pro rata basis. So that's something that we must keep in mind. In addition to all the insurances, there may be other insurances which may be specified in the contract. Now, we have just seen what a preliminary contract or the approximate preliminary estimate and detailed estimate is all about. We'll have a look at some other types of estimate that are used, but these are a different way of quoting. But for all purposes, we'll be looking at the approximate or the preliminary estimate and detailed estimate. But these are given just for your information. One is the assembly estimating. So we have seen how we bid for each item in the estimates that we have discussed so far. In assembly estimating, the bidding is made for a component which are in groups known as assemblies. An example would be a simple residential light switch, which would include the gang box, a pole switch, cover plates, nuts, etc. So instead of quoting for each part, the whole assembly of that switch is what is considered for quoting. Another example would be a complex assembly of a metal stud and internal partition used in interior works. It could be a gypsum board partition wall, which would have members, the plywood members and the metal studs, top members, drywalls, screw tape, joint, insulation primer, etc. The complete assembly together. So this is the single unit for quoting. Now, the usefulness of this sort of estimating is that it is very useful during the conceptual and preliminary estimates. It is a quick way to find the cost estimate using broad assemblies. And because of this reason, these can be less accurate also. And this is usually used when we have limited drawings to compare design approaches or to check whether when a detailed estimate seems to be way off from the target, then we use this as assembly estimating to see where we have gone wrong. Now we look at project comparison estimate. They are prepared by comparing the cost of a proposed project to a completed project which is comparable. And then we make adjustments for differences. For example, we may be in a city and we have an apartment building built, and the next year we may be building a similar apartment in a neighborhood city. So what we do is we take the prices of the apartment built in the previous years, make adjustments for inflation, cost of labor, etc., and even changes of plans. So these are also not very accurate because there could be considerable differences in the costs coming out of the differences in sites, for example. So these adjustments have to be made to get a realistic estimate. So let us now recapitulate. In this video, we saw the different types of estimate. We saw what a preliminary estimate is, what a detailed estimate is. We looked at what are the organizations of estimates. The preliminary estimate and detailed estimates are the two most important tools available to anyone undertaking a construction project. Preliminary estimate enables the client to have an idea of the cost of work in the initial stages of planning to help understand whether the project is feasible and whether the client has the capability to take it up. Now, the detailed estimate takes into consideration each item quantity-wise and cost-wise. We also looked at how estimates are organized, usually in the order of the activity taking place at the site.